flip it in the heel of my boot. Now, you know that these are guys and women who probably don't even know what a straight razor is, let alone its lethality.
Stay there. I want to hear the rest of the story. We have to go a little bit longer because I want to let Lennon and others get their question in.
You are listening to...
All right, Army Ranger veteran, a Vietnam psychologist, weatherman, infiltrator, so we can know what's going on in the mind of the type of people the globalists want to put in charge over us. Absolute scum of the earth, people that want to dream of killing 25 million people. I mean, just talk about sickos on a grand scale. Caller, Lennon in Illinois, real quick, finish your statement now, and then we'll go to Bruce. You're on the air.
Yeah, I wanted to say to the audience, I pretty much, just like everybody else, for a very long time before I started getting into my research and my work and deciding what I needed to do, I was just kind of a listener. I'd tune in every single day and was, oh, you should listen, it's the right thing to do. And, you always had this inside mindset that that's just kind of what you did, and it was part of your resistance. It was your victory. But there eventually gets a time where you need to stop listening and you need to start speaking.
Well, people ask, where's the solution? That's it. I mean, you hear about this and look it up and find out it's true. You will start taking action.
Exactly. But you start taking action by really coming to terms with it, because you can just sit back and listen to somebody talk about, oh, yeah, they want to kill 25, 30 million people. Oh, yeah, that's horrible. Yeah, those damn globalists, I hate them so much. But until you actually start sitting down and you take time away, get rid of all the television, get rid of all the radio, just take time tonight, take time tomorrow, find some free time in your schedule, and actually start thinking about what is actually going on. And instead of just like everybody else out there who, when they first get their first glimpse, when you show somebody a 9/11 documentary and they're like, oh, that sounds good, but then they kind of run away, instead of having that fear that you can't actually do something, think about that there's millions of people right now who are in that exact same position, that there are people in government right now who are in that exact
That's right. There's people on the, quote, right and left that want to use crises and events to take our liberties. Good points. And you just can't let people take your liberties. Anybody that does that is trying to take control of your life. Larry, any comments on that?
Yes, there's one other thing you have to understand. I'm not making this up about Bill Ayers. Bill Ayers calls me a liar. He says that he never even knew me. I sat across the kitchen table and listened to him plan a bombing in Detroit where the number of black people that were going to be killed in the bombing were numerous. And his response to me was, well, sometimes innocent people have to die in a revolution. I understand what you're saying, and I support anything anyone has to say. What I have a problem with is when you decide to put a bomb in a restaurant or wherever and kill people that have done absolutely nothing other than live their lives, and in the name of your political beliefs. That's wrong, and I don't give a damn what anyone else says. It's wrong.
Well, it is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. I mean, I think the caller's saying is that he's going to take action politically. He's not going to just sit here and listen anymore. Yeah.
I hope he does.
In fact, I really feel when we come back, I want to talk about what you guys are doing and try to bring some of these people to justice. Bruce in Kansas, you're on the air. Go ahead. Quick question.
Yeah, Alex. First of all, I wanted to say I'm a total believer in the tangy tangerine. I use that stuff every day. To Larry, I want to know your take on the recent shooting in Colorado and the 2 dead, 9 wounded at the Empire State Building here recently, and also this whole entire Chicago thing where it's what, 19 people shot overnight. I mean, it
was 30 shot in one night. Yeah, and we're going to go to break. We'll come back and get his take on that on the other side. Any other questions for Larry?
No, I mean, I wanted to know how he, what kind of groups and stuff are behind these kinds of things, and if he knew if that's what the case was.
Well, sure. I mean, let's talk about Chicago itself when we get back, and we'll take a few more calls and let our guests leave us. We have another guest coming on, a journalist who were harassed as the TSA, who aren't even sworn officers, are running around groping everyone on the streets in Tampa. We'll be right back. sick of the globalist eugenicists. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another hour of worldwide transmission against tyranny. I am your host, Alex Jones, and I'm here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're doing just a few more minutes with Larry Grathwohl, Army veteran of Vietnam, Airborne Ranger, psychologist. The Weather Underground tried to recruit him. He infiltrated them and helped put some of them behind bars. We're taking a few calls. A caller was talking about if Obama staged Fast and Furious, the CBS News has now been forced to report to blame the Second Amendment. People like Larry Pratt have come out and said if they'd stage that, they'd stage anything. You know, letting nuts out, winding them up to do it, protecting them. But things like the Empire State Building shooting, that looks like it was a disgruntled employee shot one person. Then he got shot, and the police shot 9 others in the process. But what do you make of Chicago and the kind of mafia culture that's up there, where they've had some days 30 people shot in a night, where you're in a culture where there's victim disarmament and the law-abiding citizens can't own guns?
Well, what do you expect? I mean, you know, back in the day, when my grandfather and grandmother were living on a farm in Kentucky, they owned a shotgun and they owned a rifle, and you know what? They took care of themselves. I can't remember of any incidents in their lives that required them to shoot anyone, but you know what? All of the bad guys knew that if you were traveling through the countryside, that all them people in them homes were armed. Now, that makes a big difference, doesn't it? And suddenly you're dealing with a city like Chicago and New York, where an honest citizen is unarmed. That makes an easy victim for someone who has no conscience. And is there any doubt in our minds that the bad guys are out there? And come on, our courts are protecting them. All of a sudden, when they get arrested, they have more rights than the victims do. You know, the victims' names and everything about the victims can be in the newspaper, but you can't even show the face of the perpetrator. Why is that? You know, our government has gone too far, and it's time for that to change. And so when things like what happened in Colorado and what happens in Chicago and what happens in Cincinnati, it's my town, it's where I live, it happens every night. There was a gunfight in a park a few days ago, and 2 guys got shot in the hand. They found 2 guns, but they weren't sure that there wasn't a third perpetrator. Do you understand that gee, we make up the excuses for them before they do? And of course, the immediate liberal response is, we got to have more gun control. Does that make sense? You know, if you ask the bad guys, if they're going to walk in a place and try to rob it, if they know that there's people in there that have concealed weapons permits, the answer is no. They're looking for the place where no one's armed. And, I mean, that's the world that we live in. Unarmed, the honest, and armed, the bad guys.
Now, Larry, I want to take just a few final calls here before we go to our next guest and look at what the TSA is doing. But see, you're a nice guy, so you look at this and you know, just look at it as it's being presented. But the globalists know how to put nonviolent offenders in jail and keep them there because they're good prison labor for 25 cents an hour, driving down wages and making big profits for private prisons. But then they have actuaries where they release the violent offenders to menace the public, so we beg for a bigger police state. It's Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution. The system knows this, and so that's what they're doing. The system wants to gobble up nonviolent people and people for petty things while releasing the serious criminals, and that's because we have criminals in government.
Well, I think that if you look at the quote-unquote war on drugs, you'll find a perfect example of what you're talking about. Tell me something. How much would it cost for us the U.S. government to go to Colombia and buy every acre of land and pay them farmers to raise corn. And all of a sudden, the cocoa leaves go away. But if you do that, you simply crush a vested interest group, don't you? Judges, prisons, prison guards, attorneys, politicians. I mean, it just goes on endlessly, doesn't it? And that's what justifies the hundreds of billions of dollars that go into the war on drugs, which, if anybody has looked recently, we're losing.
You're right. It's just the total corruption of society. Adam in Canada, you're on the air with our guest.
How you doing, Alex? Honor to talk to you, my friend.
Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, you, Larry, as well. You two really are doing the work of a million men. Sometimes I don't know.
Well, look, we're just trying to survive. Let me tell you, these people take over. I mean, let me tell you, we're going to be slaves. I mean, I don't. There's nowhere to run. This is a global system. This is like Lenin or Stalin or Mao trying to take over. Okay, if they get away with this, which happens, you know, most of the time in history, you get tyrants. Listen, we're in a world of hurt, brother. So the people that say, oh, we're such heroes or we're great guys, let me tell you, the reason I get upset about that, I'm not mad at you, caller, I'm not mad at you, Adam, is because people see it as heroic to speak out against a bunch of criminals. Listen, these people are dangerous, folks. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, and it's the truth. I have to throw that in. Go ahead.
What were you going to say? Yep, go ahead.
Alex, what I want to talk to you about is being Canadian. Our gun laws up here are... It's so crazy to me compared to what is happening in the States right now. I'm comparing it to gun grabbers as opposed to gun givers up here. It's like they're promoting, you know, when you turn 18, go do the gun license and go do the hunting course. And like, it's weird, man, what is going on. Like, I just wondered if you could maybe shed some light.
Look, it's very simple. There are powerful interests in mega corporations that are monopoly people. And they've got all sorts of dependents and people in government and corporations below them that want more power. And the quickest way to do that is to mandate you buy health care, is to mandate you do this and that. And they don't want you to have the power to defend yourself. They want to make you dependent on them to protect you. So then they can nanny state you on top of it. Just like Larry said earlier, they want you to not have food, water, and guns when they collapse things, so you've got to go hat in hand. That's why they advertise, get on welfare, get on food stamps, even if you have a job. They want you dependent. It's called domestication. Great question. Larry, comments on that?
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that if I understood that Canada is requiring people or asking people, motivating people to become familiar with firearms and to purchase firearms, then I advocate that. That is what our founding fathers believed in. Listen, when the Second Amendment was added to the Constitution, it wasn't because we were fighting Indians or we were shooting rabbits. It was because this country had fought a war of liberation against the greatest power in the world. That was England. And we had won. And we did that because we had a civilian militia. And that's what protects us every day of every year. And that includes Canada. It includes the United States. Remember one thing. If they decide that they're going to kick your door in, the first question is going to be, does that guy have a gun? And they're going to look to see if you have a registered firearm. And if you do, they're going to, here comes the SWAT people, okay? All of a sudden, you're a lot more of a threat than you are if they believe